Awesome. Cool. Hey, everybody who is tuning in on recording. It is Monday, March 19th, and I'm hanging out with Justin and Mike. And we just did a quick little check-in, and then we're kind of gonna get in. We're gonna kind of get into the conversation. And what I think we need to start with is this member recruiting and event programming. Um, Justin, you said that you were seeing that kind of coming on the horizon for you. Uh, do you want to just tell us a little bit more about the specifics around that and kind of some of your latest thoughts?
Yeah, so we've got a few members that we're starting out with, and I think one way that we're going to be able to kind of drive people into the space to kind of understand what co-working is all about is to start having some events in the co-working space. As we were coming up with it and as we're designing it, one of the core missions of the co-working space was to really help educate and help the local businesses and local students. So we're kind of looking to have kind of the gamut of some events that are geared more towards like teaching kids how to code and stuff for the youth, and then which will naturally kind of bring in their parents, and that's a really good way of kind of getting the word around about what we're doing here, and then kind of trying to figure out what types of events or meetups we could have here, that are going to bring people in, and the type of people that maybe would be looking for that would be interested in having a place to work, but maybe they don't already understand what co-working is. And that's kind of the hard part, is you know getting people that don't know what co-working is to kind of seek out your co-working space.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay. And what do you think in terms of what you've done so far? Like, what have you done so far that has made progress in this regard?
As far as event programming, not a whole lot.
Okay.
We I mean, we've kind of started to get a space set up for it, but uh, that was going to be the big drive this month. But as I mentioned before we started recording, had some things come up and had to put a few plans on hold. So more or less, I'm starting from ground zero. We have had a co-working meetup, and we got a couple people from that. Um, and that was actually kind of helpful when we were doing the co-working meetup out of the coffee shop, because we would be able to kind of run into other people that were just working off their laptops, and kind of encourage them, and kind of let them know what we're doing and all that. But now that we're in our own space, we don't have that kind of apart from like walking over to the coffee shop and grabbing anybody with a laptop and leading them over here, which I think the owners of the coffee shop might not appreciate. um, it's a little hard to uh, a little bit hard to kind of get that kind of organic, you know whatever.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, one of the things that we talked about in the past, and I don't remember who's exactly on which call anymore, but we talked about uh, uh, the relationships that you currently have, the communities that you currently know of, and kind of starting with that as a home base. A lot of my methodology and what I think really makes this work in the long term is by starting with people you already know, starting with your existing networks, starting with ones you're aware of that you haven't engaged with sufficiently yet, and then building off of that so that you're not, what we want to do is not have you sitting in a room thinking about how to find people, because it just leads to a lot of pain, and it just makes the whole thing difficult. So we want to make this real. Like the thing that allows for recruiting and co-working, or in a lot of businesses to be painful, is if we're making this amorphous group of people who are our customers this distant thing that doesn't exist. That we want them to, like what's the marketing message, or what's the event that just gets this mysterious group to show up. And we can do that, we can work with that, but the more we make it not mysterious, the easier it is. And so we make it not mysterious by identifying real life human beings and starting with a very small number. So how many members do you have now, Justin?
3, and I've got one more that's not including myself. 3, and then I got one more that's probably going to be signing up soon.
Okay, great. So you've already got a starting point there. We can talk about, for one, what I would want, like if we like touch base again next week, right? For one, I would want to talk about what is your relationship with each of those 4 members? What is a next step that can be taken to deepen that relationship, whether it's get a cup of coffee with them or whatever? And then what intel can you gather about who those people are and what's going on in their lives that can be used to better understand their wants and needs, such that you can align your organization around their wants and needs, and help to really make this something that is super valuable to them beyond just being a nice place to work. And what you may find in the course of doing that, that's kind of a retention exercise, but it's also potentially a recruiting exercise, because in the course of doing that, you might find that one of those people is working on a thing that is interesting to other people. And so if you do something around that, then, that could attract other members, right? So engaging the people you already have relationships with as members, awesome. Great, number one. Number two, and I'm going to put this, I'm going to take a document I've been working on and modify it for this conversation. So I actually put it in the chat. I made a new version of this in Airtable, which I'm gonna show you in a second. But we'll just kind of run through this first. Second is people that you've met previously that you need to get back in touch with. So in the course of the last several months, you've talked with a lot of people about this idea. Can we brain dump or even do some research through your emails or through your piles of business cards, and then just come up with the names of all the people you've talked to about this, put them all on a list, and then rank them in terms of their potential value. And maybe it's just like one guy you met and you really don't know if he's worth keeping in touch with, so he goes to the bottom of the pile. There's one guy you met 6 months ago who you remember having an electrifying conversation with about this, and you just kind of never kept in touch with him. Awesome. He goes right to the top of the list, And then once we've kind of sorted that, that could be 100 people, that could be 15 people. I don't know what that is, but then you've got the top band of people, which is 2 to 10 people or so, that you're going to send a personal message to and ask them to go get coffee next week. I hope you like coffee because you're going to drink a lot of coffee. Maybe you switch to tea. I don't know. Right. But you go out and you meet people, and then one of those people is going to, maybe be a direct opportunity for a member. One of those people is going to be a member in 6 months or 3 months. One of those people is going to connect you to some other opportunity, to another person who's going to be a member. One of those people is going to invite you to be a guest speaker at their event. One of those people is going to come host an event at your space. Boom, awesome. We're turning the gears, and all you're doing is meeting people for coffee or kombucha or whatever, right? So, right. So now we've just worked within the people you already know, and we're already really working those contacts. Now, to some degree, this requires you to have some comfort, being social, like going out there and doing these kinds of networking activities. And I would say that, figuring out how to engage with people in a way that's compatible with you and your personality type is up to you. So I'd be curious to see what that particular approach feels like for you. But find a way that feels right for you. It feels healthy and natural. And then we can talk about, tier 3 is finding new people. And in finding new people, we look at, what are the other communities around town? What are the other spaces or places where the people that you want to hang out with are? And what can you be doing to go and spend more time in those places around those people? And so, if I were to have homework for you to come back to me with for next week, it's, what are you going to do with the current members? Who are the people that you're going to re-engage with? And, what are you going to do with the top people? And then what are the things that you've been that you found that you could go and participate in person or online, local gatherings or spaces, or just kind of people you can be hanging out with. Um, that's gonna that's gonna give you a really good starting point. And then I would say, segueing into programming, building on that progress you've made. Let's say 2 weeks from now you've re-engaged some of these people. Maybe even next week we're doing this. If you have a little meetup, and it could be as simple as Taco Tuesday. Were you here for my Taco Tuesday rant?
I don't think I was.
Okay. So really keeping it ultra simple in terms of programming, as easy as like whatever's your favorite kind of weekly happy hour special, Taco Tuesday type thing, 2-for-1 margaritas, trivia night, like whatever it is, and making the ask of people who are maybe interested after you've talked to them one-on-one, or maybe you need to give them a little extra nudge. Just to be really just able to say like, hey, next Tuesday I'm going to get a few people together, we're going to eat some tacos and talk about stuff. I'd love for you to join. Are you game? Right? You get 5-10 people to come to that. Everyone kind of, hey, let's do a round of introductions, talk about what's going on in your life, talk about what's most alive for you right now. Like, what are you really focused on for the next season? And then just let those relationships stir and create this sense that you are someone who is facilitating these kinds of connections. And then it just so happens that you are building a business that is all about creating an engine for this, right? Mm-hmm. And I like doing that in neutral territory, like going out to a cafe or to a bar or to a taco place or whatever. Kind of makes it a little bit easier for someone to say yes, because the barriers are a little lower. When you say to people like, hey, come over to my space and let's have this meeting, like that's cool because you want to get people in your space. But I think people have this conditioning around knowing that if you're inviting me to your place of business, it's because you want me to pay for what you're doing with your business, So a lot of times early on, it can really help to, to humanize it, to say like, I'm not trying to get you to come work in my space. I just want you to come eat tacos with me. Right? Like I'm not business, I'm Justin. And I like tacos, So actually, do you have like a favorite thing like that? Is there something coming to mind as I'm telling you this?
Yeah, I'm thinking of a few. I mean, there's right up the street, probably about 200 steps up the street, is the Kern River Brewing Company, which is a big hit with the locals and around.
Is that the place that does the pizzas too, or is that a different place?
No, this is a little local place, but they win awards all over the state for their beers.
Yeah.
There's could do whitewater paddleboarding meetups. You've got the lake and the river right here, and that kind of ties in with kind of our our brand quite a bit. But you're also kind of minimizing the number of people, because not everybody's into that stuff.
I mean, you can do that, like if you have a specific audience, like we talked about that audience before, and it could be a really nice niche, because you don't need 1,000 members for this to work. You need a number of subcultures. And so if you can get 10 members who are specifically interested in that part of the community, I mean, then you're on your way. What would you say, like what's your capacity? What would be dream come true number of members in your space?
Oh, I ran the numbers. I think we probably max out somewhere around 30 or 40.
Great. Okay. So so you really only need a handful of kind of niche cultures for this to work. For that community, I would say maybe start by going to them, figure out what they're doing and where they're gathering, and before you organize something for them, see where their heads are at and what their needs are. And I'm sure you hang out with them at whatever happy hour or meetup they're doing already. They're going to have conversations about their marketing, about their websites, those kinds of things. And, it's very easy to ask leading questions that add, very, very naturally will lead to, well, hey, wouldn't it be cool if one of you came and gave like a demo or a show and tell of how you did your online presence or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, again, kind of coming in with this curiosity mindset first.
Very cool.
And then I would also say with the brewery, are you connected to the management there?
Yeah. The owner is really excited about about what we're doing.
Yeah.
And he has offered, short of financial donations, he's offered anything he could do to help, up to and including beer and giving us access to his thousands and thousands of social media followers.
Awesome. That sounds great.
And that's one thing I think we've been really successful with is the business community around here is really kind of highly motivated with what we're doing. They're kind of on fire about the idea. And these are brick and mortar businesses that that they themselves aren't going to be members, but I want to try and I want to make sure that we're helping them be successful and they're helping us be successful. So trying to figure out the next thing to figure out is, okay, well, how can we turn these relationships into something that's good for the co-work, whether that's new members or whether that's something else. But
yeah, one of the former members of this group launched a space in Longmont that I was fortunate enough to attend the grand opening of. And he was in a similar place where he knew a lot of the local businesses, a cidery and a distillery and food people and those kinds of things. And his launch event was one of the most incredible launch events I've ever been to. Very humble, but he had tables, stations set up where each of the local businesses got to have something that they were offering up. And so the launch event was actually almost like a little community neighborhood small business showcase.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great because like I got to go and there was a cidery and I got to sample their cider and took their stickers, and their cider was spectacular. And, the food was catered by, a local food hall and whatever. And so, that each of these local businesses was excited to share with all of their contacts that this event was happening. Like, come check out our cider at the launch event of this co-working space, And so, there's a lot of like aligned activities you could do there. Maybe we're not quite there yet, but maybe we can get there, kind of phase 2 or 3 of this little plan.
Yeah, that is a really good idea though. That was something I've separately I've been trying to work out how to, we're going to have a launch party, even though we've kind of soft launched, we're going to have a launch party at some point, but then also kind of talking to the local Chamber of Commerce and trying to figure out what kind of event that the Chamber of Commerce could sponsor that we could have here. And I think that might be a good way of kind of tying those things together and giving it some meat. That's a good idea. I'm going to kind of try that out.
Yeah. And it makes things a little bit easier for you too. Like, it shifts the work. There's a fair bit of work in terms of getting those relationships together and kind of putting together all the pieces for it. But then it makes other things that would be hard later easier, like paying for food and drink, or finding a sponsor to pay for it, doing a lot of the setup, which you'll now have a lot of volunteer help for, and recruiting people to come attend. You would spend a lot of energy recruiting attendees to your event, whereas building a relationship with 3 or 4 local business owners, especially like this brewery owner, they're going to do the heavy lifting for you on that. So, that shifts you from a little bit away from the tactical, like, how do I get the food and how do I get people to show up, to how do I recruit a handful of people who themselves already will be able to cover a lot of those things. And then, that helps you to be a little bit more high level with your work. All of this is geared, like the whole point of this, everything I'm talking about is to make things easy for you. Where there's a lot of ways to do these things hard. But if you really, if you make the right move, if you're smart about it, if you're clever about it, then you can, achieve ideally the right kind of thing. You can achieve, 10x the impact for 1/10 the effort. And that's exactly what I want to just direct you to, a handful of the right kinds of conversations with the right kinds of people in town can achieve so much more than so much of the like grunt work that we've done in the past trying to achieve a lot of the same ends.
Very cool. Yeah, that's thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna will you check in with me again in a week and we'll see how we're progressing on all these things?
Yeah, I've got a kind of a standing commitment every other Monday. So but I'll check in with you probably on Slack then.
Yeah, Slack is fine. That sounds good.
Cool.
Mike, I know you had kind of a similar question about members and programming, and then you had some other questions, but I'm just curious, while you were listening in, did you have any thoughts based on, just the conversation I was having with Justin so far?
No, I mean, it makes sense. I'll agree with you that most of the, people who have come into the space and signed up have been people from the leads of the people who are there. So I'll agree with that. And then it's, I've been using Instagram a lot for people that kind of, I look at who likes the pictures, who likes the stuff that we're doing, and then I just try and connect with them. And that's where I've gotten some of the other leads, looking at people who are local and coming into the space. And we started doing something we call the Seacoast Marketers Meetup, which is just basically everyone sharing what they're doing, what their businesses are. And then we go over one or two products that some of us are using. So other people can look at the things that are there. So we actually just, usually what we do is we actually review what AppSumo has up on their page as well to see if it can be helpful to people too. So it's kind of funny. So
nice. So what are you thinking in terms of next steps for your programming, and how does what we just discussed kind of juxtapose with that?
Yeah, I want to get our start planning our kind of grand opening, like celebration, so to speak. Good part is our local business association is going to feature us in their next newsletter. So that's going to be good, which goes out to not only all the business members that are there, but as well as the all the people, pretty much everyone who's in the towns around there. So that's actually pretty good from a marketing standpoint. But I think for us, it's strange. Everything I get from everyone that comes in is saying the summer's going to be big. Yeah, I'll use it in the summer, because a lot of the folks that are coming in, we noticed it actually last week. We had a snowstorm and kids were at home, and I had more people decide to like use the space for a drop-in. I kind of was like, hey, come on in and use the space if you want to. And I had more people do that. And a ton of people were saying, oh, I definitely going to use your space during the summer. So I'm trying to figure out how we manage that, because so many kids come home and there's so many people that come up to the area in the summertime and rent houses and need a space that they can't get work done at the house because the kids are there because they rented the house. So I don't know. I'm just trying to wrap my head around that.
So you're saying that there's kind of a seasonal element there that you're experiencing around.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and so I'm trying to figure out how I can leverage that either with realtors or just even the places at the beach. Can I go to some of the condo complexes that are renting things and say, hey, we want to do a deal where you buy so many passes, type of thing. I'm not sure. I'm just trying to brainstorm it, whiteboard it, think about it. So I'm looking for any advice anyone's got.
Fun. Yeah, I would say, just personally, when you get into that, first of all, recognizing the different audiences. So there's, we deal with this with people who are doing places in real like destination nomad type circumstances, where maybe a lot of the customer base is digital nomads and they're passing through temporarily. And then creating a clear sense of who are your regulars, who are not the seasonal people, who are kind of your cultural core. And then optimizing for those people, since they're going to set the tone of the community so that when the visitors come through, that they have a different, they have a very specific experience that's based on the culture that's already set, but then also setting kind of specific ways of catching people who are not the regulars. And I don't know, maybe that comes with a little bit of research and conversations with the people who you think might be a good fit, to get a sense of what kinds of needs they have that you can specifically design for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, no, I think it does. It's probably also why, it is funny, because I think there's these two things. There's the local people who will be using it in the summer because their kids are home, right? The local work from home. And
Mm-hmm.
I've got a couple freelancers that have similar things. Like, it just gets really busy in certain venues and travel gets a lot harder. So being local is much more important in the summertime. So it's
Right.
like, how do we leverage that? Hey, look, you can get here in 10 minutes versus if you go up where you normally work out of in that coffee shop, it's going to take you a half hour, and
Right.
that's really time that's valuable to you. And PS, that coffee shop is going to be louder than it normally is, and the Wi-Fi is probably going to be absolutely horrible because everybody and their brother is streaming some type of video or Facebook, right? So
Yeah.
uh, so it's kind of like that. That's, I guess, that would say is my use case, so to speak, which is different. So I want to make sure we have that core base of people, which for me, like I said, my space is small. 10 will do it. I mean, 10 will do it, and we'll be good with 10 people. And most of my 10 people happen to be part-timers, at least right now. That's what it's looking like this is coming out to be. I may have one or two that use it every day of the week, but there's probably most they're using it 2 to 3 days a week. So, but
Gotcha.
so,
Cool. Well, yeah, I would say, if you can get a little more conversation going and get a vibe for those needs. And if it's a very seasonal thing, then you can design a specific program and a recruiting around that, where if the dates are very specific, then you can, recruit specifically for people around that seasonality. And when the peak effort should happen, when there should be a real recruiting drive, and maybe a specific event geared towards converting people who are interested. And then maybe even, I'm picturing kind of like the Co-Boss program I was describing a few months back, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but there's some details in the toolkit where you can have some shared goal setting for the season, so that people can be invited to kind of support each other.
sure. No, it makes sense. I mean, that's what I was thinking, maybe of a June, July, August membership special. Like, in essence, like, boom, buy 3 months and here's your 3-month pack type of thing,
Yeah.
at a specific rate or something. So,
And then that leads to a perfect opportunity for, here's your alumni package at the end of that. It's a special offer only for people who have this thing, and here's how you can stay involved with the community after the season in a more lightweight manner.
sure. That makes sense. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, it is amazing, by the way. I will just say this in general, having some kind of a basic level membership specifically for alumni, or just people who want to be involved with your community and support your space without physically making use of the space. I had a fair number of people over the years who were paying maybe $30 a month, $35 a month, just to be in the group and just to support what we were doing. A lot of times people can't physically continue to work in the space, but they want to continue to identify as a member of the community. And so just offering that up, it doesn't really cost you anything. It's just another membership level, but it can prove very fruitful. And if you're really clever about it, you can actually convert a lot of people to it. I've seen a handful of examples, not a lot, but some people have gotten really good about just converting almost everyone that walks in the door to some kind of basic low-level membership. And so, we could talk more about that at some point if anybody's kind of getting into that.
Okay, cool.
John, I wanted to say hi. How you doing? I saw you snuck in there a few minutes late, but what's going on in your world?
I think the number one priority is we're just trying to finalize some collateral requirements for our SBA loan. It's just I sort of knew this going in. There's a lot of work getting that commitment letter. But the bank has come back a couple of times with two of my partners and asked for additional collateral, which is obviously a rub on them. But I think we got everything finally worked out. It's been like 2 weeks trying to get everything in place. So I'm hoping by Wednesday of this week, we've got the letter, and then we'll be able to get the rest of our funding, because we should really be done with our construction by the end of March. But then it's just waiting on the furniture, and without the balance of the funding, we got to hold off on because of the deposits that are required. So the sooner we can get that in place, we probably push back our opening a month. It's going to be sometime in June. We had originally had hoped for May, so it's all good. It's giving more time to get members in place, and I think I told you I made an offer to a community manager, director of sales, and she's supposed to give her notice this week. So she'll be starting with me early in April. And she has great experience. She's coming from Level office, and she's actually opened up 13 offices nationwide for Level. The last one being 125,000 square feet in Denver. So she's used to filling up spaces, large spaces, and it's great because she comes in and asks me all these questions I haven't thought about. So, and the sooner I can get her on, the better. But obviously, we need the funding also to be able to pay her salary. It's coming along.
Cool. Okay, so it sounds like when it comes to the membership side of things, that remind me her name.
Her name's Molly Rogers.
Molly. So it sounds like getting Molly on board and onboarded and trained and everything is going to be a big piece of that for you.
Absolutely.
Are there?
Go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'd say I've had already tremendous interest in the private offices, and I really feel like I've got 14 private offices, and I feel I'll have all of those except with the exception of maybe one committed within the next 30 days. So that's coming along very well. It's a little harder in terms because I'm able to give tours of the space, but people can see the private offices, they get that, but without any furniture in there, it's a little harder to envision, just off a floor plan of what that's going to look like.
Gotcha. Okay. And in terms of relationship building, kind of some of the stuff we were just discussing with Justin at the beginning of the hour, how's all that been progressing?
It's good. It's I love what I heard. One of the things is we have sort of a local, the area I'm in is sort of an upcoming community of businesses and residents, and there's a lot of young professional millennials moving into this district. So they have a community association that I've become a part of and getting involved, and they've got a big fair coming up in June, which we'll participate. We'll probably have a booth because fortunately it's in our parking lot right outside. So, but they have a newsletter. They've got a Facebook page, and they gave us some. There's a local sort of daily agenda. It's called the Charlotte Agenda that talks about all sort of events for the week and new projects and new development, new businesses coming to town. And they gave us a really good plug last week, and I had 3 or 4 people respond off of that. So
wow,
it's just, I think it's sort of like what you said. I just, I'm promoting wherever I go, and they just have to, feel comfortable with that. And I do go check out some of the coffee houses, and I'll just pass out cards while I'm there, and ask them if they're would like a more permanent work environment. And it's amazing how conversations start with that. You might say no, but I got a friend that's looking for space, so it's just networking.
Gotcha. And do you think that there would be value in following kind of a similar methodology to what I was describing to Justin, or maybe identifying some of those key people and seeing how you might advance some of those relationships?
Absolutely. I'm actually looking, there's a couple of potential members of giving 3 months 3 months free so they can sort of be ambassadors of mine, because they're very social people, and they seem to be very interested because they want to be promoting their own business. So that's one of the things we're looking at doing. And I've talked to them and they said, yeah, I'd be happy to help out. So you told me about a meetup early on. I didn't even know what the hell a meetup was when I first started this. And now I'm going to various meetups around town just to check them out. And there's one really good one called Solopreneurs that I'm involved with. And I've hosted one of their events, and I plan to do that again before we open, because we had such a great turnout the first time. But we had nothing to show. We just had threw up a website just for information purposes only. So want to do that again, probably sometime in April or May, offer to host another event.
Gotcha. And what's your relationship like with the folks who are behind that group?
Really well. Matter of fact, ironically, the founder works at another co-working office here in Charlotte, but he's all about promote. I mean, it's not like exclusively, and he's not. I mean, he's very good at promoting, and he has sort of like a co-boss situation where every quarter he has a morning breakfast and just sort of going around talking about what people's needs are, ways to help them grow their business, what their challenges are. So I attended my first one, I think it was in January, and I was surprised at the turnout. And I think everyone there said, let's do this more often than, once a quarter. So I think he's going to try to start doing that on a monthly basis.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like people like that are potentially super valuable to you in terms of, making sure people are aware of your project and coming to your launch party and all those things. So, as long as you're keeping up with those kinds of people, I'd say that's going to be helpful.
Yeah, I have no problem going out and drinking beer if I need to. So that's all good. Or coffee.
Yeah, it definitely helps if you don't mind drinking coffee and beers. So, okay, cool. Any kind of burning questions you want to share with the group?
Yeah,
we do have some time.
Yeah, I think Mike mentioned something about working with like realtors, and I just had a broker call me that leases commercial office space, and she was asking if I'm participating with outside brokers. So I really hadn't factored that in, paying a commission for, and it's sort of hard to do on obviously the memberships, but she was bringing an office tenant to me. And I mean, having been in the real estate business, I know how important it is to work with brokers. They can bring you a lot of business, but I also didn't, I'm not sure really how that needs to be calculated. So I'm trying to get some feedback on how would you compensate, because unless you're going out, a year on the membership, you want to make sure that the member's going to be there. You can't pay like a year's membership if they have the ability to terminate after 30 days. I'm just I'm wondering if you've ever, had an experience with outside brokers and trying to bring you members or even deals as far as that goes.
Yeah, I would say that the issue there is that logistically it can just be a little annoying to get set up. So for the month to month, you can easily set up a model where you pay out commissions based on the tenure of the member. That if they stay 6 months, then they get a certain commission. If they stay 12 months, they get a certain commission. It's just a matter of administering it and seeing if that's something that's worth administering for you. You're probably only going to have to do it a handful of times if you do.
Right. Yeah, I think that's, having been a broker myself, brokers like to get paid when the deal's signed. And,
sure.
And it's always, it's a risk on the owner's part putting monies out there if the tenant fails and leaves, but that's the nature of the business. Also, you don't make anything until you sign a deal. So it's sort of a catch-22.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And so, it might just only make sense to work with a broker if the broker is going to bring you someone who's going to sign a lease for 1 year, a sublease for the larger, for the larger offices in your space. Yeah.
Fortunately, the tenant or member she brought me is her husband, so it's not like it's an outside group, and they need to get in sooner than later. So I think I found them some temporary space, and that I'm not asking for anything to help, being compensated. So I'm hoping that maybe we can do a trade. I'll say, hey, listen, I found your husband this space. I'm not asking for anything. I'll send you business for larger tenants that I wouldn't be able to accommodate. So I'll work through this one, but it's I hadn't thought of it, and I probably need to going forward.
Yeah, it probably just helps to, make this a conversation. Anybody who you might work with in this capacity, get a sense of what their needs are, see how that lines up with yours. Right. And if it seems logistically difficult, then that's okay. Like, then you can acknowledge that and let that dictate if you shouldn't do something, or come up with some clever alternative. I've not seen a lot of spaces work with brokers. What I've seen more is, at least on the smaller end, that they offer some incentive for when a new member signs up. That it's not treated like a broker program. It's treated more like an incentive program where you get a credit on your membership, or potentially even cash. Where at this membership level you get this many dollars, at this membership level you get this many, and if they stay longer, then you get a bonus or whatever. And again, it's not that much work. It's just, you have to decide if you want to invest a little time into doing it. But you'll get a vibe for that.
So it's sort of back to Mike's question about working with realtors. If it sort of depends on what you're asking for. I mean, if it's just more or less making it information to let people move into town that might be looking for office space, we have this facility to accommodate them. But if the realtor or broker if you're looking at having them bring you new members, I think obviously I would need to look at some sort of compensation for that, because obviously no one works for free. Or at least I
Fair enough.
I have. What am I talking about? I've been doing it for work for free for a while now.
Fair enough. Okay, cool. And I saw we had Jen join. Jen, are you able to just check in, say hello, and let us know what's going on in your world?
Hey, what's up? Yeah, I'm having my usual Wi-Fi issues, so I'm just video off. Sorry I'm so late. I had to take one of my dogs to the vet, but I finally got a letter of intent from the landlord.
Yay!
So they, the initial agreement looks pretty good. So we are going to hopefully see a lease this week.
Woohoo!
Mm-hmm. Exciting times.
Awesome. All right. Cool. So what's next for you? I know we kind of talked about there being some overwhelm, at the prospect of all these different things last week. So what's your latest perspective on all that?
I don't know, to be honest. I was in pretty intense on going back and forth with my broker about the letter of intent. And at first he was like, just sign it. It's a good deal. Just sign it. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to just sign it. I'm going to have my lawyer look at it. And then at the end of the week, he said, oh, you don't have to sign it. They're already working on the lease. I was like, okay, cool. Then I won't sign it. So I was pretty deep in that all week, to be honest. Again, I appreciate the unexpected private session that we had last week. It was pretty great. Just going over the P&L a little bit, and I did meet with the woman that I hope to partner with in some way with the daycare aspect, and it sounds like she doesn't necessarily want to operate that aspect, which is what I wanted her to do, but she's open to some other arrangements to kind of like get me started and get me launched and help staff. So I'm going to basically make a list of everything that I think needs to be done, and we're going to see how we can divide up the work, because the more that I can outsource that, the more it's just the better, because it's not my forte, but it's an important component of the space. So
Gotcha.
that's all things Day House right now.
Great. Yeah. Well, and I think so. The other thing we started working on was a timeline with some key milestones. So maybe, you know, what I'm realizing is maybe it just makes more sense for you to kind of chart out some of the major signposts for that, and get a vibe for what feels good for you, and then maybe you can share that with the group for for feedback.
Yeah, definitely. I certainly got sidetracked after our great session, just because the letter of intent came through and that all happened. But yes, need to get back on that, because it was we started working on some good stuff there. And you showed me
Yeah.
Airtable.
I
so
did.
rad.
Yes, I did. We're probably not going to have a time for a proper walkthrough today, but yes, I'm a big fan, and stay tuned for more. Actually, I'll just I'm going to post my referral code in here, because it's free, but I want to play with the premium version, and premium version costs money. So
All right.
yeah, okay. So I put it in the chat if you guys want to. If you haven't used Airtable yet and you want to check it out, I'm a big fan, and I will be producing more toolkit materials using Airtable soon. Okay, cool. So we were also going to talk about sponsorship and software. So Justin, I'm sorry, not Justin, Mike. I would say just real quick in terms of the software. Do some research, spend some time getting to know the different platforms. I've said this before in other calls, but the software platform is I try to make everything, I try to give you the shortest shortcut with everything that we talk about. With software, I really do think you should take time and invest some time into researching it, getting to know the different platforms. It's a very personal decision. It's different for everybody, and it's highly consequential, because it's a real pain to move off of one platform. So I would say, take some time and acknowledge that none of the platforms you pick are going to be perfect. So you just want to find the one that feels closest. And in this period, you can pilot. You can try out a platform when you have a handful of members, and it won't cost you much of anything, and get a vibe for if it feels really good. And if it really doesn't, then it's not so bad to change platforms. And odds are right now you've got some early adopters who are pretty open to trying new platforms and giving feedback on issues. So do some research, and then obviously you can ping the group with the results of your research to say, hey, I'm kind of between these two. Who's using these platforms? What do you think? And then test it out. Yeah, that's the best I can say on that front.
Okay. Yeah, I got like kind of 3 that I'm kind of using. They happen to be like all stuff I got off AppSumo, which is one that's Book Like a Boss, which is like a booking software. And that's worked fine. I mean, I've run the payments through that, and it goes through Stripe, and that's been fine. And then the other one is Omnify, which is essentially, I mean, it's not a co-working software one, but it's more of like a gym. It was built to be a gym member management thing. So, I mean, it works. I mean, same concept, right? So, and it actually might be better because they do allow a little bit like digital and physical products as well, which is something I think we might do too. So,
Nice.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm going to try them out with it. And like I said, you're right. I mean, the group's been pretty good when we sit down and do our monthly member meetup. That's like, okay, here's what I'm doing. What do you guys think? So they've been, it's especially when you sit them all down around a table, it's kind of cool to be like, all right, so what are you thinking? How is it?
Yeah.
What can I do better? Yeah.
That's great. That's great. I love it. Cool. And then real quick in terms of the sponsorship conversation. I would say this is a perfect opportunity for a little brainstorm session. So, can you do a personal brainstorm, just research around town? I would say looking at other events that have happened around town on Eventbrite or whatever, conferences in particular, and see if you can find who's already been sponsoring events. I guess I don't know what other events are happening around town that you can use. I know in Boulder and in New York, I was able to draft off of things like Startup Week. Startup Week tends to get a lot of sponsors. Startup Week or Startup Weekend, or even like TEDx, those kinds of programs. They tend to be really good at getting sponsors, which means they're good at giving you hints about what kinds of sponsors you might be able to get to. So I don't know how much that applies to your particular situation, but whatever the equivalents are, that helps. But then there's also a good opportunity when you've already got some space and you've already got people meeting, to even throw up like a whiteboard in the space or a post into the discussion group to just say, hey, these are the sponsors we've already been talking to. Who are we missing? Throw some names at us and then just see what comes up.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Coming back to that software conversation, can you remind me what the platforms were that you were narrowed down to?
Yeah, it's Book Like a Boss is one of them. So it's just a booking software. They I can throw the links in here.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the reasons, like I said, I tend to be an AppSumo guy. I'm always checking them to see what they've got for a lifetime membership. But even Book Like a Boss is looks like they've actually, I didn't realize it. They actually have a free version, so that's always works. But then their basic plan, which gives you unlimited appointments and whatnot, is only $9 a month, so it's not killing you. Put that in here, and then
nice.
The other one is Omnify.
Nice. Yeah, you've definitely been evangelizing the AppSumo possibilities, and that's.
I tell you, it's one of those ones where you can get lucky, and I've seen some platforms there. I think a lot of people go on there to, like, rather than go for a round of funding, see if they can just raise a bunch of money, and I've some are duds and you spend $50, and others are good, and you get something that grows over time. That's awesome. So yeah. But let me
cool. All right, very good. What haven't we covered enough yet, or is there anything else anybody's got on their mind they want to share? Well, we've still got a few minutes left here. Going once, going twice. All right. I would say, just in closing, the relationships with people is again what a lot of this comes back to. So definitely, one of the things we talked about in the beginning with Justin, with identifying those different people and the key people, look for ways to foster those relationships with people who are in your community, who aren't yet in your community, and that's going to make so many other things easier. And feel free to report back if you want some accountability, or if you just want to share how your experience went. And cool. Awesome. Guys, it's been fun. If you need anything else, please shoot a message to the group.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah. And Justin, I will look forward to your Slack message next week.
Sounds good. Thanks. See you guys.
All right, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.